Welcome to part two of my video update on lessons learned. In the previous part of this episode, we got up to item number 13 on my list of 23 and talked about trying to avoid shaky video using a smartphone. So one other point I want to make, I mentioned that I have a corollary blog post with this video, but I also intend to follow that up with, in a couple weeks or a month, my own listing of equipment that I think someone who wants to try out the waters, as it were, and see if they really like doing videos, or if they're comfortable talking to a camera, and the basics of what they need. I would have appreciated that, I think. Although I do like to experiment. I do like to just find the equipment and make it work. And even though I did look at what a lot of people are doing in their recommendations, I'm not sure I would have followed that myself. But it's something I'm going to do in case there are those of you who might be interested in saying, okay, what's the least amount of money I have to spend in order to give this a try? And then I'll make a list of what you might want to do if you go beyond that and you find you do like working with video recording. So, okay, so let's pick up where we left off, and that is what clothing to avoid when you're doing videos. Clothing like this. I left the shirt on purpose. It's not quite as bad as some, but it gives you, it's got a little bit of a tight pattern. It's not a pattern really, it's just blue lines and white lines, but they're close together, and that creates what's called a moire pattern. And some are worse than others, and the shirt or blouse clothing can look like it's alive and glowing and moving, and it's very distracting. So hopefully this is not distracting, but it's the kind of clothing you want to avoid. Simple white, even a white shirt, like on a black background, or the typical blue shirt is always a blue shirt or blue blouse is a favorite, and you can't lose. Okay. And the other thing is that unless it's the look you are going for, avoid cluttered backgrounds. Look back here. This is the look I'm going for. I want you to see this is where I work. This is my studio. And a lot of people do that. I think some folks who do videos, they do great videos, and they're sitting on their sofa in a living room, and that's fine. But just with a little effort, they could change it so it's a little more attractive. So what I'm doing, so if this is again the kind of look that you want, and you're portraying something, then that's all good. But if you are wanting to be somewhat more formal and you maybe want it to be a little more professional looking, then what you can do is use a white background or use a black background, or just use a very cleaned up area. Number 16 is record things that you know something about and about which you can talk without a script. I don't script these things too much. I don't script them. I do make lists of things I want to make sure I talk about, and I usually only have like maybe 8 things on a list. This is a rather excessive list, so it's longer than normal. But when I'm doing my photography or learning photography, it's something I do when I have students. So I walk around, I talk to them, and I'm telling them things about their camera. I'm helping them learn how to control their camera and use some of the controls on the camera. And it's something I know about. And so I don't need a script for that. A script would make it very stilted. Well, wait, let me read that from the script. I avoid having to have a script, but the other extreme, of course, is that you just talk off the cuff, and you ramble, and you're not really staying on point as to what you're trying to communicate with the people that are listening to you. And so that's not good either. You need a happy medium. And the happy medium for me is, so number 17 was plan out each recording, review it often, and practice. Doing some practice with this is not a bad idea either. I didn't know I was practicing last night when I recorded this, but it was a practice. And then number 18 is if you're going to read from a script, do look into making I mean, there are times when you do need to have kind of a script. And when I started out with this, I thought that's what I had to do. So I'd type up a script almost not almost, it was word for word. And I put it on a teleprompter that I made myself. And I would recommend, if you want to try out a teleprompter, do a search for DIY teleprompters and make your own. Don't invest a couple $100 in a regular teleprompter and then find out that you can't use it. I found out a teleprompter doesn't work for me very well. It's not the way that I like to present or communicate. And so I have it, and if I want to use it or need to use it sometime, I can always pull it out. But if you're going to speak off the cuff, my comment here is don't, but definitely have some. And then number 20 is this: a happy medium is to have bullet points of what you want to cover. And what I do is I type up for learning photography and technology tools, and for these updates, I type up a list of bulleted items that I want to cover. And then I put them into their own document, and I use Pages. I'm an Apple guy, so I'm using Pages, which is the word processing program for iOS and for Mac. And I increase the font size to like 25 points, make it bold so it really shows up on my iPad. And I put it on my iPad, and just as I'm doing here, it's either right in front of me and I can read it from this far away, or I can put it on a stand when I'm doing a stand-up for photography and technology tools, for example. And I don't read from it, but I refer to it, and it helps me keep on track. And so that's kind of important. The other thing is that it is and this is an area where I really need to work myself. Vary your presentations with B-roll. B-roll is footage of things that you're talking about, so you can just roll them in while you're talking, and what your viewers are seeing is what you're talking about. And so you really have to, number 23 is you need to plan and sketch out those B-rolls and have them ready, and then make sure that you talk about them in such a way in your video when you're doing the talking that they can be fit in. I haven't really perfected this at all. So audio, lighting, and creating B-roll are three areas that I need to really work on myself. I got lighting and audio sorta down, but the B-roll is just something I need to practice a bit more. Okay, so that's my 23 lessons learned. And I'm sure there are many more, and I'm sure I'll think of others. And if I do, I'll make another video update with an updated list. So I hope this has been helpful to you, and I hope you'll check in on my next video update, which hopefully will be next week. Thank you very much for stopping by.